Alright, Trekkies and Trekkers, time for the second episode of the day, which is The Quickening. In the wardroom, Major Care and Chief O'Brien examine the room's computer terminal as Quark enters, followed closely by Odo. Quark benignly asks what the problem is, and Kara shows him an advertisement for Quarks on the monitor. Although Quark doesn't see anything wrong with it, Odo reminds him such tampering is a Class 3 offense. Before they can proceed, an Emery Worf enters and approaches Quark accusingly. He shows a mug in which his prune juice came from the USS Defiance replicator. It is a similar advertisement, and Worf turns the mug sideways and repeats the jingle from the monitor. Karen patiently warns Quark to fix the replicators by the time she returns from the Gamma Quadrant, otherwise she will go to Quark's and makes it clear she'll be the one having the most destructive fun at his expense. Under such a threat, Quark then decides to help Chief O'Brien by purging the system by taking his tool from his hands and beginning modifications. Lieutenant Commander Dax, Dr. Bashir, and Kira intercepted stress signal while on a biosurvey mission in the Gamma Quadrant. They divert to a planet near the border of Dominion space. Dax and Bashir beam down and find a long-ruined city with people walking about going about their business, all with blue welts on their face. Just then, a woman named Norva, with red lesions on her face, approaches and collapses in front of the two in obvious pain, begging to be taken to Trevion. As Bashir tries to give her something for her distress, another man, Epren, approaches to tell Bashir that there's nothing he can do for Norva as the blight has quickened in her. He tells Bashir to leave the planet immediately and forget all about it. Bashir tells Dax that the painkiller he gave Norva isn't helping as her physiology is so different from theirs. Also knowing that this means that the two of them are safe from infection. Reaching the hospital, after Dax traded in her hairpin for transport, the two Starfleet officers find a very unhospital-like atmosphere. Groups of people are all sitting on the floor, starting one person with red lesions who was enjoying a meal. An attendant, seeing Norva, tells the assistant that she is quickened and must be taken to Trevion. When Trevion enters, one of the people who is being celebrated thanks Trevion for allowing him to enjoy a decent meal and good sleep after finding out he had quickened. Trevion then turns to Bashir and Dax and tells them that Norva didn't make it, and that if she had arrived sooner, then he could have done something for her. He then tells them that the blight is always fatal, which confuses Bashir as Trevion had just said he might have been able to do something for her. Bashir and Dax explain that they came to the planet answering a distress call and that they have sophisticated medical equipment. Trevion tells them they once had equipment just as sophisticated and tells them the story of the planet. 2 centuries earlier, the planet was technologically advanced and the inhabitants were building great cities and traveling to neighboring worlds. When the Dominion came to the planet, the population attempted to resist, but they paid the price. The Jem'Hadar came to destroy the world, and the Dominion wanted to use the planet as an example to others who thought they could defy them, and therefore affected them with the blight. Now everyone was born with the disease, and the disease may randomly become active or quicken at any point in a person's life. This is outwardly shown by the lesions turning red, and it means that the person will die soon after. Trevion himself is one of the oldest surviving people. Just then, the man who thanked Trevion falls to the ground. While everyone else watches, Bashir secretly moves to help, but is restrained by the attendants. Turns out that when people quicken, they go to Trevion to have their death induced with herbs. Bashir and Dax are infuriated by this, and realize that he has also killed Norva. Trevion tells them it interfered with the man's death and orders them to leave. The officers are too shocked to argue. Dax finds the stress beacon, which is automated with its own independent power source and has actually been operating for over 2,000 years. Bashir feels that there's nothing he could do for people who don't want their help and recommends leaving the planet when they meet a pregnant woman named Ikoria. Ikoria was in Trevion's hospital and is curious about Bashir, as she has never met a doctor. She tells Bashir she is pregnant and due in 2 months. While this doesn't seem so long to him, she tells him it is, as the people get no warning as to when they will quicken. Just then, the grim discussion is interrupted when Kira calls the tube and gives us the bad news. 2 Jem'Hadar ships have been detected headed in their direction. Back at the runabout, it emerges that the Jem'Hadar ships are moving between star systems on the once obvious patrol route and will soon enter theirs. Kira suggests returning to the Alpha Quadrant and arranging for a relief mission with Starfleet, but that could take weeks. Bashir references a recent case when, during a plague on Uranus 3 that was killing thousands, It took an hour to identify the pathogen and 3 days to inoculate the population. Kira persuaded to leave the other two on the planet and will hide the runabout in a nearby nebula and return for them within a week. After returning to the planet, Dax and Bashir offered a place to stay and work by Ikoria. While setting up their equipment, Dax asks about a hanging painting of the city in happier times. Ikoria tells them that her husband painted it before he died the previous winter. They also painted a nearby mural of the same picture to give hope and inspiration to other people. Bashir finishes setting up and tells Ikoria he needs to run a scan on someone with the disease, to which Ikoria happily volunteers. Bashir begins the scan and offers to show her a picture of her baby on the medical tricorder. Ikoria agrees and looks on in wonder. Later, both Bashir and Dax are hard at work and make their first important step when Bashir isolates the virus, meaning to start mapping and possibly create an antigen. Ikoria offers them both food and gives them the food that she was saving for her death. She tells them she feels she doesn't need it any longer. Bashir now needs someone who is quickened, however, finding someone willing to help is proving easier said than done. Bashir then moves Ipran, who is now quickened. He's surprised that they are still here and tells them he would have invited them to his death had he known him better. Bashir asks what if he didn't have to die at all. This catches the attention of Ipran and a few other people. Where Ipran is skeptical and thinks it's going to cost him something, to which Bashir tells him that it's true and proves his knowledge when he uses an osteogenic stimulator to fix a fracture in a boy's arm. Jordan arrives and says that others have promised a cure. Only of them has taken food and clothes and left them with nothing, and the people who believe them all went to Trevian in the end. Bashir in turn assures Trevian and the others that he gives no guarantees about his efforts. Returning to his makeshift lab, Bashir is disappointed that he couldn't get any volunteers. Ikoria tells him that she used to wake up hoping she had quickened so she could go to Trevian, but that had changed the way she learned she was pregnant. Now she wants to be there for her son when he grows up. The Dax arrives, and turns out that Ipram has volunteered to be Bashir's test subject. Later, Bashir has several people in all various stages of the disease and is making good progress. He instructs Ikoria in the use of hypo spray, and she injects herself with its contents and then moves on to everyone else. However, it doesn't have hypo contains what he believes to be the antigen against the blight. Also, Ipran has stopped responding to cortisone for the pain, as now has a device emitting inhibitor field on his forehead. Dax was feeling that he's been awake non-stop for days working on this, and he should go get some rest. Going outside, Ikoria tells Bashir that Ipran's white blood cell count increased by 12%, which Bashir confirms is a good sign. He then compliments her in a good bedside manner, but she tells him she was just trying to be kind. Bashir tells her some people don't like to be around the sick because it reminds them of their own mortality, and he can sometimes be the same. Ikoria reminds him that death gets everyone, but Bashir tells her it won't get Kukalaka, his teddy bear from when he was a young boy. He carried him around everywhere, and one day, when his leg rubbed open, he performed his first surgery at the age of 5 and stitched him back together. And then was said, Kukalaka now sits on a shelf in his quarters. Just then the moment is interrupted when Dax arrives, panicked, telling Bashir that something's wrong. He then goes to find Ipran in pain with new lesions on his face. Ipran now has several new lesions on his face and is in terrible pain as the virus has suddenly mutated. Almost where the antigen hasn't caused it, Bashir uses a microcellular scanner to try and find out what's wrong. However, when he passes the scanner over the affected area, several more welts suddenly emerge and inflame. The terrible truth hits Bashir. The EM fields from instruments are what is causing the virus to mutate so violently. Just another woman starts to scream quickly, followed by everyone else, all serving the same reaction. Bashir screams for everything to be shut down. Dax and Ikoria scramble switch everything off as Bashir tries to stop the mutation. It's news that Ipran dies in horrible agony. Bashir then uses Seabread to try to resuscitate Ipran. Of course, the man against attempts to revive him well past the point of return, forcing Dax to pull him back. Trevin enters, having heard of what's happened, and one of the women begs him for his help to end her terrible suffering. Bashir tries to stop, but Trevian tells him not to interfere and gives the woman a vial of poison, allowing her to die. The other patients start calling for Trevian, and Bashir simply stands at the center of the room, devastated and unwilling to stop him. The next morning, Bashir stands among the now covered bodies of the people he was supposed to help and blames himself for what's happened. He knew there were changes in the viral sequence that should have realized what was happening. Dax tries to assure him that there was no way he could have known their instruments would cause the virus to react like that. Dax attempts to console him, but it's no use. He would say he was looking forward to telling people he had cured the blight. Finally knows that there was no cure. The minute he made sure of it, he was arrogant to think he could find a cure in a week. Dax tells him that he might have been arrogant, but it's far more arrogant to think there's no cure just because he can't find it. Bashir is left alone to think things over. Bashir then walks down the street and is reviled by the people, but he does acknowledge their hatred. He's passing around the city to hear from Ikoria and goes to look at it. Looking at the picture of the city in happier times, Ikoria approaches Bashir from behind and tells him she's glad he got the chance to see it. He turns to look at him, upset to see that she is quickened. She thanks him for giving her hope. But she really thought she was going to make it to the end of her pregnancy. But now she's going to see Trivian and bids Bashir farewell. As she leaves, however, Bashir asks her to wait, having had a change of heart. The runabout has returned to the planet, but Bashir tells Karen Dax he can't leave the people now. He is told to contact the station when he is ready, and Dax bids him a fond farewell before he returns to the planet, alone with his medical equipment. Ikoria is now Bashir's only patient after examining her using the old-fashioned local equipment, he's convinced to find no trace of the antigen in her system. He reasons that her immune system must have rejected it when suddenly Ikoria feels some pain from the blight. Bashir advises her against receiving any more cortisone, as there's already so much in her system it may harm the baby. She agrees to forgo it. Later, Bashir prepares a salve for her and takes the opportunity to examine the baby. His remain stronger will be at term in 6 weeks. But it's clear that Ikoria isn't going to last that long. So Bashir tells her that the baby should be strong enough to survive in 2 weeks, and then he'll induce labor. Later, Charmaine visits Ikoria and offers her the chance to die, telling her child will only know peace. Ikoria refuses, saying her child deserves a chance to live. But Bashir confronts him and asks why he's so obsessed with death, given he survived the blight longer than anyone. Charmaine responds that the reason he's obsessed with death is because he's seen so much of it, as well as so much suffering because of it. He wishes Ikoria well and hopes she lives to see her baby. He leaves, and Bashir begins to appreciate his situation. Ikoria has made the past 2 weeks and is now giving birth to her baby. She puts as hard as she can and gives birth to a baby boy, but the effort takes almost all the life out of her. Bashir cleans the child and is astonished to find no lesions on the baby's body. He is free of the blight. Bashir realizes the antigen must have been absorbed through the placenta and immunized him to the disease. Although he couldn't find a cure, he has made a vaccine. Ikoria smiles, happy that someone will live a full life, but then she finally dies. Bashir is torn between his joy and devastation. Bashir reports the news to an astounded Trivian, tells them that all pregnant women must be given the antigen immediately. The people cannot be saved, but their children can. Trivian promises to make sure the antigen gets to everyone and holds the child, a beacon of hope in their devastated world. Back on Deep Space Nine, Bashir is working hard late into the night, analyzing the virus. Captain Sisko enters after reading Bashir's report and warmly congratulates him on a job well done. Bashir thanks him, but it doesn't make him feel any better about the people still dying on that world. Sisko rants Bashir that, because of him, their children will not suffer in the same way. Bashir knows, but it's a small comfort. Sisko nods his understanding and leaves Bashir alone to his work, and the doctor continues his efforts to find a true cure. Aw, that's kind of nice. Anyway, so let's take a look at some continuity surrounding this episode. Quark previously inquired about promoting merchandise on Deep Space Nine's monitors, which Sisko denied in the Gem Hadar. Koval, the chairman of the Tal Shiar, asked Bashir about the events of this episode in the 7th season episode, Inter Arma Enum Silent Legis. So, yeah. So I think this is a pretty touching episode, and yeah, while Bashir wasn't able to find a cure then and there, it's a good thing that he's still trying hard on it. So yeah. So overall, I give The Quickening 4 warp cores out of 5. When to tune in its way, take a look at the penultimate episode of season 4, Body Parts. So until then, live long and prosper, everybody.